So then I'll go back to that.
Okay, it looks like it's going.
Perfect,
And
that's great.
Well, Frank's getting situated, just a reminder that if you're not talking, to go ahead and mute yourself just to keep the background noise down.
Thanks, Katie. So this is our third meeting, and the slide just says Waiver Reimagine Task Force meeting, January 27th, 2026. And then what I was next going to was we had collected some data from participants that asked, what are some of the things we have in common, some of our common ground? And these are your verbatim answers. We want to have funds for all those we love and care for, and to have the best setting and best life. We want waiver recipients to remain safe and fully supported. We want all group members want a system that supports people. Care for the recipients of the Medicaid waivers. And then we all agree on the importance of improving outcomes for people and ensuring that services are accessible, person-centered, and sustainable. This is a shared commitment, even though we may differ on the best path forward. So we're all here to do the same work together, which is wonderful. As a reminder, this is a public meeting. So we are here together as a group, and the meeting is also being live streamed on YouTube. So anything you say is going to be available to the public. So if you don't want your information made public, you may choose not to speak or provide it in a written form afterwards to Katie and me. And by taking part of the meeting, you understand and accept that what you're saying is going to be available for the public. Just see what's next. Okay, so we have a couple of folks here who are not on the task force. And so Ilion is here as to help with notes. Kala is here as part of DHS and reporting out on a couple of things. Adrian is here as part of DHS. Katie Pratt's here as co-facilitator. The Minnesota logo DHD DSD is Anna, I believe, to help with tech support and accessibility. And there is a captioner that is also joining the meeting. And I think everyone else is a task force member. So that looks good. And we'll go into a little more detail on that. I just want to say one thing, just because I don't want it to be a distraction. If you are actually looking at me, you will notice that I have broken glasses. And I have found that being on Zoom all week, that this serves as a distraction for people because they notice it. So I stepped on them a couple weeks ago. I couldn't fix them, so I just took that thing off. You will notice periodically them falling off of my face, either because I hit them wrong or something like that. You know what? It's a look. It's not a good look, but it's a look. So I'm hoping that in the next month or two, I'll be able to get them fixed, but I need to find an eye doctor first. So the realities of things, you know how that is. So with that, whatever you need to arrive in this space, I would appreciate. So a couple of suggestions is, I know that I have to mute my phone or at least turn down the ringer. I've got a personal parking lot so that anything that comes up that I need to make notes of or I don't want to lose track of, I am jotting those things down. And I'm just going to invite you to, I kind of feel like we need to acknowledge the things that are happening in the world, in our state, in our community, and in our homes. And then whatever you need to do to kind of put your mental chatter into quiet mode or dim mode, we appreciate. So the focus we have for today is in this gray box, and it says by the end of this meeting, we will have, and the first bullet is introduction of task force members and their preferences and areas of interest, updates updates on key dates and waiver reimagine work plan changes, if there are any. Plan for letters, quote unquote, letters to the task force workflow. So I want to give you a heads up on that. Next steps for some of the work groups, and then clarity on areas of agreement, if we have time for that. And our objective is we're shooting for a B+, and to recognize that our goal is understanding, and we may not agree, and that's totally okay at this stage of our dialogue. That is really natural. And then the meeting plan, as it had gone out to you, was to have us start at 1. We're sort of in the welcome and startup and logistics mode right now. And then I was going to go to task force member introductions and then checking in with DHS on dates and waiver reimagine work plan changes. I'm going to propose that we juggle that a little bit and we go next to checking in with DHS on dates and waiver reimagine updates, because Heidi, I think you sent me or somebody sent me a note that said they would have to leave early and loop back in. Heidi, was that you? Okay, I'm seeing Heidi nod on the screen. So we're trying to move that up so that you can be here for as much of that as possible. Then we'll take a break and go through some of the workflow related to letters to the task force, and then take a deeper dive into the work groups. We'll talk about next meeting dates and then wrap up with action items, parking lot items, plans for February. So that's the proposed meeting flow. So people can anticipate that. As a reminder or an invitation, when we met together in December, which was awesome that so many of us could be there in face-to-face in Egan. So thank you for making that happen. We used these red, green, yellow index cards to sort of illustrate support. So green meant, yes, I can support it. Yellow meant, I can support this with caution. I have some concerns. And red meant that something didn't work for someone. And as you may recall, when we see a yellow and a red, what we really want to do is just understand the nature of concern. It may not change anything, but we want to understand that. So my hope is that we can continue to use that coding, and we'll just use the letters G, Y, and R, or the words in chat when we need to take the temperature. So are folks all okay with that? Perfect. So Katie Pratt, I might ask your help when we're querying the group that way to sort of unpack that if we need to. And I'm seeing you nod, so I think we're on track that way. So that's great.
And Fran, there was just a question in the chat that our introduction is still happening, and they're still happening just a little bit juggled in the agenda order.
Absolutely. It's one of our primary desired outcomes, because at our third meeting, we should know who's here. So thank you for that. A couple of grounding requests, and hopefully these ring as familiar to folks. We want to maintain a climate of inquiry. So listening, reflection, really the concept is for us to generate more light than heat. We're going to focus on understanding, so asking deeper questions and reflecting back. So don't be surprised if somebody asks a question, if Katie or I ask to understand more about the thinking behind it or the genesis behind the question itself. We're going to ask your help in sharing the air. So please try to bottom line your points if you're able. And if you've spoken recently, we're going to ask you to maybe pause to let others step forward. This is where it's really useful to have that personal parking lot so you don't lose your thought and we can loop back around. We're going to work to minimize the use of jargon and acronyms so that we're all knowing what we're talking about. And then since we're in a virtual space, I'm going to ask for your help in practicing good virtual meeting behaviors. So one is turning on your camera, if that works for you. The second is using the hand raise function, if that's possible. And I am not as familiar with WebEx, so let me just see where that is. I'm not seeing it.
Very bottom of the page, there's a face and then a hand next to it. If you run over the
It's
hand,
right next to the reaction button.
Yeah, not on mine, which is
Really?
fascinating.
Yeah, there's a
Fran,
little smiley face and then her hand. to raise right next to share, to the right
Yeah.
of share.
Brian, your screen might look different because you're sharing.
Sharing. Yep. I'm not seeing it.
It
so
might
that's
be at
good
the
to know.
top of your screen.
I don't have it, but you all are seeing it, so that's great. And that's what really matters. So no problem that way. Again, practicing good virtual meeting behaviors. I'm going to ask you to minimize distractions. And frankly, that includes the use of chat. Chat in a virtual space is like a whole separate conversation going on in the same meeting room that's drawing everybody's attention. So I'm really going to ask your help with that we minimize that and really will be using the chat to answer very specific questions that then Katie and I can recap because not everybody has access to the chat in the same way. So is there anybody on the screen in the meeting that cannot live with those grounding requests? I'm doing a scan, and Katie, if you can check the chat if anybody weighs in that way, but not seeing that on the screen. So I'm assuming we're all green on that. Excellent, that's great. I saw Katie's thumbs up. I'm not going to read this whole stakeholder list, but at the last meeting, we generated a comprehensive stakeholder list of who the task force serves. And it starts with people with disabilities and their families and ends 17 bullet points later with the general public. So we have a broad array of stakeholders interested in our work. I'm going to skip that. And if you are all ready, we're going to jump right to updates from DHS. And so, Kella, who's the spokesmodel for DHS on some of these?
Both myself and Moore are going to share in these. So we've
Okay.
coordinated behind the scenes. I'll get us started today and then I'll pass off to Moore.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kala Oftedal. I am the Deputy Director in the Department of Human Services, Disability Services Division. And I'm part of the project team for Waiver Reimagine. So here to provide some updates. I was with you back in November and here back again to give some updates about the project. A reminder for you all is that I'm of mixed race. I have brown skin. Today I have my hair up in a ponytail and a bun, a little bit above my head. I have my glasses on and a striped green and black shirt. And I'm sitting in my kitchen with a dark blue background and then a couple of pieces on my wall behind me. So thanks for having me today. I'm going to give you some updates on the project overall, particularly highlighting or emphasizing some things that have shifted within our project timeline. So some deliverables or milestones that have shifted within the upcoming months here. So going to start first with what we're calling our 30-day public comment period. A reminder that our 1915C home and community-based waiver application process requires us to post our draft waiver applications for a 30-day public comment period from Minnesotans. And that date has now been adjusted till April of 2026. So we're not planning to post our draft waiver plans until April. That was previously targeted for January, meaning this January. And the reason being is that some of you may know that the 1915C home and community-based waiver application requires us to include a focus or an appendices on the financial management of our waiver programs. And we are needing some additional information from our third-party vendor, HSRI, to help inform some of the financial management fiscal analysis pieces of that application process. So because we're not planning to get some of that information back from HSRI until a little bit later into Q1 here, we are now planning for that 30-day public comment period to happen in April of 2026. The next piece wanting to share is that because our public comment period date got pushed out, additionally, so does our CMS waiver plan submissions. So our waiver plans will not be submitted to the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, or CMS. We're planning for now July of 2026 to be submitted to CMS. And again, that's kind of a waterfall impact from the 30-day public comment period activities. Wanting to speak a little bit, Fran had up on her slide the governor's decision not to run for re-election and if or what impacts that may have on the project. And at this time, there is no impact to the project currently that we're budgeting for or assessing for. So wanting to share that, as well as the volatility in the federal funding, that right now some uncertainties with what's happening in our greater landscape, and currently there's no impacts to the project based upon larger federal activities that are happening. I'm going to pass it to you if you want to talk a little bit more about the data incident with MinChoices.
Thank you, Kayla. Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Moore Vu. I'm currently serving or acting as the Interim Assistant Commissioner of Aging and Disability Services Administrations at DHS. And I'm happy to be here at part of Task Force. But I'm going to just give a little bit update on the MinChoices data breach, that notification that we send out to individual being impacted about just maybe 2 weeks ago. And so what happened, if you are curious, is that in November, DHS was notified by our vendor, FEI. FEI is the vendor that we use to develop or to run the MinChoices platform. It's a web-based system that we use for the assessment and support planning for long-term care. And so in November, we're notified by FEI that there is a provider who actually is authorized user of the application have access data more than they should. And so that, it is a very, we take this situation very seriously. And so from the point that we've been notified, we have worked with the vendor, asked the vendor to have a third party to do a forensic investigations to really make sure that, where happened to the data. And from that investigations, there were no evidence that informations were being misused. And so that really led to our notification to individual being impacted. We also notified some counties, lead agencies, tribal nations, just because they're also a user of the system. So that is what, in regards to the data incidents with MinChoices. Wonder if I'm happy to take any questions if anyone have for me.
Why don't we open up questions for the whole slide? So not just that more, but we'll just do the whole slide.
Okay.
I saw Linda Wolfert's hand.
Thank you, Maura, and I appreciate the transparency. And I was one of those people who got the data breach letter after I saw it on the news on Friday night. And I just want to say, I've had some wonky things happen, and I don't know. I have no idea if they're related to this data breach, but it's kind of unusual. So I went to a practitioner of mine, I guess it's Gillette, and my address had been changed in the system. And then I went to, and I would have thought this might be a fluke, but then Ramsey County also changed my address to the same one. I did not authorize those changes. I was never notified about those changes. I don't know. It's just bizarre. And this caused a major disruption in services for me. And I don't know if it has anything. This might be too personal. We can take it offline, but I just wanted to say I can't figure out what's going on.
Thanks, Linda, for sharing. And I do want to honor the fact that I do think that's a little personal, so I want to be attentive. But more, may I assume that in the letter, direction was given to the recipient on how to raise these things with DHS? And do you just want to recap that for a second?
Thank you, Fran. Yes, in the letter, we have asked for individual like Linda, like you mentioned, I think it's important to really look out those the bill of notice from your healthcare. So make sure that you monitor those letters. And also, we also ask that you monitor or get help with your credit report to. That's also the other things. And there's a phone number and email address in the notice that if you have any questions, additional questions, call that number and we can help triage or give you to the appropriate contact. We also notify at DHS. We have our office of Inspector General. I have to be thoughtful because I always want to say General Inspector. Our Office of Inspector General is aware of the situations, and they have really developed a data-driven process to monitor and also evaluate billings for if there's any outliers or so. Knowing that there's some process being in place and we're developing that. But to friends, your questions, it is the contact information is in there. And sorry, I don't have on top of my head to recite, but refer to that notice.
Yep, that's great. Linda Wolford, I don't know if your hand is still up or you didn't lower it. I don't have the control. By your reaction, I think okay, perfect. That's great. I'm going to keep going. We can stay with these two slides, but because Heidi is still here, I wanted to make sure that if we have any additional questions, we have the conversation while she's here. And so let me just share my slides with you all so that you've got this. So these are a few points from our last meeting, and they include min choices, early and periodic screening and diagnostic and treatment, the status of HSRI deliverables, and Olmstead compliance. So can anybody speak to the min choices piece?
Fred, I can. This is
Okay.
Marvu speaking. So with min choices, we understand the need to make sure that our data is tested for valid and reliable. That's important because we use the min choices data to recalibrate individualized budget. But at the start of this implementation for Waiver Reimagines in the timeline, that's just a barrier to get this validity and reliability test to be done before 1/1/27 as the day that we're implemented or go live. So part of the plan to mitigate that strategy is that we will do the testing of validity and reliability after post-launch when Waiver Reimagine go live. And so that is still the plan. I do want to just also raise the issue of funding right now. We are working on looking at options to really have the funding to support this work, not just to contract out a vendor to do this testing, but really also the staff that can really do the staff that required to do this work. So that we're exploring in terms of looking for that funding source. I think that, at the end of the day is really, we just don't have enough time between now to the live date to get this tested. It takes time. It takes the time that we need, we just don't have. So knowing that it's still a priority for the department to make sure that our data is tested, it will be working after post launch.
Okay, thank you. EPSDT, so early and periodic screening, diagnostic, and treatment. I think the question at the last meeting was how it relates or will shape the Waiver Reimagine process. Who's willing to speak on that?
That's me again, Fran. This is Kayla Oftedal again from DHS, Disability Services Division. So EPSDT, as Fran just stated, is the initialism given to the benefit that provides comprehensive and preventative healthcare services for people under the age of 21 who are enrolled in Medicaid. So as Fran stated, this had come up at the last meeting. So I just wanted to share a little bit more details about, we took this back in-house, did some further exploration, and wanted to come to you with a summary about our understanding of EPSDT and its relationship to Waiver Reimagine. So what we have found or confirmed, which is what we shared back in December at the December 18th task force meeting, is that EPSDT rules only apply to services that states are required or allowed to provide under our regular Medicaid plan. And in Minnesota, we call these state plan services. And these are the basic services that we must provide under Medicaid to children and youth. Again, people 21 years of age and younger. And so those EPSDT services, from a very technical standpoint, those requirements are only apply to mandatory and optional services under 1905 kind of statute. Waiver Reimagine is different. That is a 1915C waiver service. And therefore, those are two different requirements, and EPSDT does not Waiver Reimagine, I guess, if I will, is not required to adhere to the EPSDT requirements. So typically what we see is EPSDT is a state plan services, and then 1915C waiver services supplement the state plan services. But Waiver Reimagine and waiver services are not subject to EPSDT or the 1915A requirements.
Perfect. I see a couple hands. I'm going to finish this slide and then we'll catch all the hands. What about the status of HSRI deliverables? Kella, is that you again?
Yeah, I think the greatest interest, what we heard a lot about last time, is just where we at with the methodology, and at what point will we receive some of the preliminary findings, and then
Wait, don't just say methodology. What methodology?
sorry. Yeah, individual budget range methodology. Again, the inputs that are needed to identify what is the amount of money that's going to be allocated to people starting in 2027 that they can use to pay for the services in which they receive. Hopefully that helps, Fran. But so HSRI, again, Human Services Research Institute is a third-party vendor that we're working with. We've been working with them for many years. They are helping us to design the methodology. And in that, one of the greatest pieces here, I think the questions that have come up is, when are we DHS planning to receive kind of that preliminary and final methodology that, again, will be used as part of Waiver Reimagine Go Live starting January 1 of 2027. So preliminarily, we are planning for February or March to have a good understanding of that methodology that's going to be used. Again, that's preliminary. Then to be finalized and shared with DHS in June of 2026. Now, a reminder, that's always contingent on the activities that are happening currently with the expert panel and HSRI's broader work. So those dates can get adjusted as we learn and understand things differently through the expert panel activities or through HSRI's research, analysis, and findings.
Perfect. And then the last thing that I had on my slide had said Olmsted compliance. I reworded that to Olmsted alignment, and that continues as part of our overall work. So there's nothing to really update on that. So I have, in order in which I saw the hands, first Linda, then Chris, then Katrine.
I just wanted to voice a concern that if the min choices isn't validated and correct, it impacts every part of the funding process. So I think that really needs to be looked at because that dictates where everybody flows to. And if we don't have validity across the board, which seems to be part of it right now, how do we have accurate funding situations?
Yeah. And I think, as you all know, this is not the first time that has been expressed and acknowledged. And yes, so thank you. Chris, please.
Kella, I appreciate your comments, and I just had a question to better understand. the difference between EPSDT and the Waiver Reimagine. I could understand this wrong, so if you could please help with my knowledge gap, I would appreciate it. I understand that EPSDT, and I'm going to flip those letters around in my brain. I need more caffeine. I apologize if I say it wrong. Covers things like home health care and in-home nursing when it's deemed necessary. So can you please help me to understand if the Waiver Reimagine or any waiver at this point doesn't have enough funds to cover those required services, how does a person go about gaining, or where does that balance lie? I'm just not understanding. Thank you.
Yes. Chris, thanks for the question. Again, this is Cal Oftedal, DHS. What's coming to mind initially, I would invite anybody from DHS to help chime in here. Is there's two things that we're actively working on, Chris, to help support that. If people find individualized budget ranges, again, the amount of money that is allocated to people to pay for their services is not healthy enough to support the level of need that you have. There's two different things that we have currently that we're working to design and flush out further. One is that we acknowledge that there will be some services, those have not been fully defined, that will not be subject to the individualized budget range, meaning you won't have to use the amount of money that's allocated to you to pay for that service. Now, those services are still being defined as to which services those apply to. But again, there will be some services in which do not require someone to use their individualized budget range to receive. The second piece is we're also looking at, Chris, is that exception process. So there will be exception criteria that is being developed. We have, sorry, Fran, I see you want to say something.
Yeah, I just want to say, we're talking about budget exception. I want to make sure we're
Budget
using the right
exceptions.
modifier. Okay.
Yep, individualized budget exceptions. We've talked about that kind of historically within this task force meetings. I think more to come, because I think that's also something that the task force wants to work on with the work groups. But the budget exceptions would be when an individualized budget range that was assigned to an individual to spend on their services does not meet their needs. There will be exception criteria that are developed that will help us to ascertain and assess for if and when people are eligible to receive more money than what was initially identified or assigned to the person. So that exception would give a bump in the amount of money, the monetary benefit that the person's receiving to pay for those services. Now that's still in design. So that has not been firmed up yet or finalized. And again, I think we're looking for, throughout today's conversation, I think that's going to be part of the work groups, is if any of the work groups want to help tackle some of that exception work.
Well, thank you for explaining that. I appreciate that. Our current environment doesn't lend to that budget exception working well. So I appreciate you explaining that, what to expect going forward. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Chris. Katrine, please. You're not muted, my friend. I mean, you are muted, so we need you to unmute
Can you hear me?
perfectly.
Katrine Bachmer, mother of multiple participants. She, her, middle-aged Caucasian lady. So I just want to reiterate that the scope of Waiver Reimagine is still at question. We know that historically DHS on their own website had a much broader definition of Waiver Reimagine, and all of those facts have since been wiped from the website. So I think that part of our task force's work is to actually define the full scope of Waiver Reimagine. You know, in my experience, there are a number of other projects that have been labeled outside of Waiver Reimagine that still follow the two waiver structure, all elements of Waiver Reimagine, and this just really hasn't been very transparent. So I would propose that we work on that as a task force. And, also, I understand the distinction that you're drawing about EPSDT. And while it itself is not a 1915C waiver, the waiver design and implementation cannot restrict or substitute for EPSDT mandated services. In other words, EPSDT federal Medicaid requirements actually override state plans in 1905. So it has to be considered even if we're not going to incorporate it here. So any changes under Waiver Reimagine that reduce or limit access to medically necessary services for medically eligible children would implicate EPSDT compliance, regardless of how the program is administratively categorized. And also, I think that my contacts at CMS are going to want to know who is confirming that EPSDT is outside of Waiver Reimagine.
Okay, so there was a lot there, and we don't have to agree right now. I don't know if DHS wants to speak at all to this. I'm capturing that we want to affirm the scope of the Medicaid waiver, that there may be some, we're in different places perhaps on that, and affirm the relationship between the EP, all of those letters, and Medicaid waiver. So I see those as two, like, let's loop back and make sure we've got that. Clear it, good? Okay, perfect. Jenna.
Sure. Jenna Johnson is a Caucasian person. She is a disability, has a disability and uses services. And I'm her mom, Cindy. And so we have a question, and I'm going to speak for Jenna at this point. With some help of some advocates and others, we took our budget, and with our min choices assessment and the letter J and whatever we were able to determine that Jennifer's budget would be reduced by 80%. So tell me how I am supposed to sleep at night and what's going to happen to Jenna. I'm very concerned. I mean, I know that table, it goes back to that original table, which has not been updated yet, goes back to that. And I just want to put it out there right away, because using that plus our assessment, she would be reduced 80%. I just want you to know that, because something's not working. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Jenna. DHS, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all. To me, this is such a big part of the next bit of work that the task force is doing, to work with finalized budget projections, how they get played out. So in the way that Jenna and her family sort of test drove those numbers in their own life, I view that some of the work groups are going to be kind of test driving and ground truthing some of the grounding assumptions that DHS is advancing in terms of what that looks like. To me, that will also inform some of the exception processes and those kinds of things. So in my facilitator role, that's how I understand it. Is there anything anybody from DHS wants to add? I'm not seeing you jump in. I'll give you more.
Yeah, this is Morvu speaking, and I don't have any other comment, but Fran, just to agree that you are right. Like, that's what also my takeaway, that it is it's a big component of what we need to flush out and work through. And I'm hoping that that will be the shared outcome or goal that we're trying to get through our work here at the task force. So I hear you. I hear, is it
Cindy.
Jenna and
Jenna
Cindy.
and Cindy.
Yeah, thank you. I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Katie Pratt.
Yeah, Fran, I'm just trying to kind of bridge some gaps in understanding here. Because I think we've heard, certainly at the last task force meeting, and Cindy and Jenna, your comment here today, that, there sounds like there are, from preliminary numbers that came out, some potential very troubling numbers that families are seeing, right? But I don't have a sense, and maybe DHS, you're able to give some clarity. Are those numbers, those preliminary models that are out there, Are those like 90% of the way complete? Like that's pretty close to what the final numbers are going to be. Are they far from the final numbers? We just don't know yet. Help me understand where we are in the development of that, of those figures, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can start by laying the groundwork. Again, this is Cal Loft at LDHS. A little bit, Katie, and I don't know, this is probably going to feel a little bit unresolved, but a reminder that right now what we're doing is we're undergoing further activities with HSRI, Human Services Research Institute, to recalibrate the methodology to identify budget ranges. So much of what that table is that you saw online, Jenna and Cindy, those are the activities that we're doing again, repeating, and going to re-up and reshare with people once those are final. I don't know. I can't at this time. I don't know that anyone else from DHS or HSRI can at this point even say how much change we will experience in those at this time. I don't think we're far enough in that analyses and findings.
Okay, Katie.
Yeah, this is Katie again. So it could be that when the next stage of HSRI work is done, those numbers could have shifted. It could be that they've not shifted. We just don't know yet. I see heads.
Absolutely.
Heads nodding. Okay, I see heads
I think,
nodding to DHS.
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it, we'll look at, again, what HSRI has done or continues to do now is look at utilization trends. They look at our populations and the demographics and how services are used and authorized and where our, disability waiver dollars are spent, et cetera. So because their previous analysis in that table was provided years ago, things have changed in our world, right? People look and feel and may utilize things differently. So hard to anticipate exactly what that change will be, if at all. I don't know. I can't speak to that at this point.
A lot of uncertainty, which is really hard.
Totally.
It is.
Acknowledging how hard that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Jenna or Cindy. Cindy, if you're speaking, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. All we can do is go by what is out there. And I just want you guys to be perfectly clear that if it goes along the same course, we're 80% less, and Jenna doesn't want to live in an institution. No. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. I mean, yeah, please. And we'll give input as well.
Yeah. And I know that you all signed up for one of the work groups, and I think that's going to be where important conversations are going to happen in terms of like sausage making. Jenna, I'm going to ask you, or Cindy, I'm going to ask you to lower your hand. And Julie, I see you.
Kala, thanks for that information. I just want to be clear, with the recalibration of the individual budget methodology, is that what's going to come out in that February, March timeframe? And then in fact, if DHS gets that, will we not see that until June? Am I following that timeline correctly?
Great question. Yes. So you're following the dates that in February, March, we're going to get preliminary information about the methodology and about what that does, how that impacts the individualized budget range, what that means, and then finalized in June of 2026. And again, those dates are subject to change as we learn more and do more activities with the expert panel.
Yeah. Okay.
And but to clarify your question about when will that be made public, kind of externally facing, as the current table is that was published a few years back, we have not yet made plans about how that, like when and how that gets published.
Okay.
So Julie, to answer your question, I don't have a specific date in mind about how or when that gets published, and if we will or won't publish preliminary versus final.
Gotcha. I think because that is such a crucial piece of the work here, there has to be some consideration for letting this group get their hands on that as soon as possible, because there is no way for us to know what those individual budgets will look like. And there's going to be a whole group of people that don't have a lot to work with, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, Julie, let me build on that for a second. Just, it'll come up in a future slide, but we have gotten a couple of requests from task force members to understand the methodology better and some of the thinking, and sort of to have it not just be a deliverable, like here are numbers, but how did those numbers get calculated and the rationale behind that. So we're going to be working to sort of set that as an agenda item, maybe bring in representatives from HSRI as well as other folks from DHS to really sort of open that up and make that, to sort of connect all the dots. I always use it as like my math teacher saying, Fran, you may have gotten a good answer, but you didn't show your work. And so we want to make sure that people can see that. So that's, Katie and I have got that, navigating that. So I've got Jennifer, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Kate, because Katrina, we've already heard from you once, and I want to share the airtime. And then I'm going to have us maybe move to the next part of our conversation. So Jennifer first.
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering how HSRI is going to, and maybe I already said this here, but I sometimes get my work groups mixed up. But I know I've said it before, of how they're implementing the data from rural areas, where when somebody is given a budget, but they're not able to utilize all their budget because there is not providers of service in the area. And how are they going to implement that data? I don't know if you have the answer, but something to throw at them I would like to know that.
Jennifer, I am running keeping a list of like questions for HSRI. So if you're okay, I'm just gonna add that to the list. And the question is say again, how are rural settings being factored in? Is that what it is?
Yeah, when they're from having the min choice assessment, here's the need, right? But they're not able to even get 10% of what their needs are, services and supports given to them, because there is no access to service providers in the area. So I'm just wanting to know how that data is impacting the overall.
Perfect.
And Fran, this is Katie just chiming in that of course relates to the underutilization. That word was used at the last meeting as well around this.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Dr. Kate. You're muted still. Nope. It's a hot button you have there. It's a fast mover. Yeah, we
This
got
is
you.
related to the last one. Yeah, hang on.
Explain how utilization rates correlate with assessed needs when there are huge staffing shortages.
Explain how utilization rates correlate with assessed needs when there are huge staffing shortages.
Right, I've got that. Perfect. This to me is all starting to set the agenda for a conversation that we would have. So this is great. So thank you. Katrine.
Given DHS's acknowledgement that Waiver Reimagine is essentially unfinished and untested, what pre-implementation protections will be in place to prevent service interruptions and ensure federal compliance? Continuity requirements, 1915C, waiver health and welfare assurances, federal access sufficiency standards, procedural due process protections, and Olmstead integration obligations before rollout.
Katrine, that's a long list. If you could email that to me that will go towards us like using that a bit as a checklist as we're starting to sort of build this out in some of these work groups. So that would be great. Dr. Kate, I'm going to ask you to lower your hand. Katrine, I'm going to ask you to lower your hand if we're good. Perfect. Awesome. Then I'm going to keep us moving here, but I am catching these things so that we have a bit of an agenda starting to emerge for our future conversations. The next part is my screw up, and I apologize. And I will have this be a standard part of our meeting structure, but there may be other updates. And so I know this is coming as a surprise, so I own this. But a number of you are on other committees, whether you're on the Long-Term Services and Support, LTSS, the expert panel. So you don't need to provide an update right now. If you've got one and you want to share one, we can do it briefly, no problem. But we'll start to include that as a standing agenda item so that we make sure we're knitting together all of these other efforts. So I'm looking for anybody that wants to unmute. Not seeing anything. And if you want to send, a paragraph or two that provides an update, we can send that out via email so that we can close up my mistake and my oversight. So I apologize for that. I also want to let folks know, where is the screen share? Every platform has got the screen share button in a different place. So I just want to be transparent so that you all know what Katie and I are trying to manage. So since the last meeting, some task force members submitted questions and requests. One of them included a deeper dive into the budget development and methodology, which I've already mentioned. So that's on our radar. And then I guess the next two are kind of duplicative, which is to connect the work groups to the duties of the task force. And then item 3 says deeper dive into legislative intent and current task force. Deeper dive into legislative intent and current task force direction. So we've got that. Item 4 says we've got other questions or requests that Katie and I are still sort of filtering through. So we want to catch the ball. Some of them we just haven't had enough time to sort of digest and knit. So we're working on that. So anything else in sort of this chapter before I sort of tap the brakes on this and move on to introduction of task force members? Lisa, hey.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and apologies, it took me a moment. I had to phone a friend, but to Fran's point that some of us are involved in other work groups that have connections to all of this, our office is part of that LTSS group, and I just got confirmation that they've just kind of started meeting and moving forward with that. So more to come in those conversations moving forward.
Perfect. I think that's great. And Jennifer, are you in that group as well? Jennifer Ballinger?
The LTSS Advisory Council?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So we've got a couple of perspectives. That's wonderful. So thank you for that. All right, before we do task force introductions, does anybody need a little bit of a leg stretch? Should we take about a 10-minute little bio break, refresh your water, stretch your legs before we do introductions? Can we do that? Perfect. I'm seeing some thumbs up, so I'm taking that as a decision. So we are going to come back at 10 minutes after the hour. And I'm going to make a new slide. And I am going to sit right here in case anybody needs me. Dr. Kate and Cindy, if you're still there, looks like you froze on my screen.
Unmute.
There you go.
And
I see you.
okay,
Jennifer, you might want to mute yourself so you've got privacy in your conversation. Dr. Kate, the comment that you just made about utilization rates, if you all can email that to me after the meeting, then I'll copy your exact text and make sure that's on the list. But I think your wording was concise, and so that was great. Trisha, nice to see you in Mexico.
Yes, I've been trying forever, but we'll see how long it lasts. Thank you.
I can pretty much assure you that no one in Minnesota is dressed like you are right now.
I could be a real brat.
Ooh, ooh. Where are you in Mexico?
Isla Mujeres.
I don't know where that is.
It's just an island off of Cancun, and it's cloudy and rainy, and it's still wonderful. Come back.
I was going to say it looks miserable. That's awesome. I have colleagues that often will work from Mexico, and they have yet to figure out a reliable system. So you may be in and out, and I totally get that.
I was just able to see that it looks like you're on an actual break right now.
We're taking just a little break before we do introductions. So we're going to be there. We've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Yep, just a little leg
Fingers-
stretch.
Fingers crossed.
If Trisha is still on, maybe she should go first with introductions, just in case.
Brilliant. That's a great suggestion, Dr. Kate and Barbara. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Kate and Barbara. I can't wait to hear about how your trip was.
We might have to extend the meeting if we're going to have a comparison of vacation conversation. I probably won't be able to facilitate that because I haven't had a vacation, and so I don't need to tap into envy.
I don't think it's fair or right that Trisha's calling us from Mexico. I'm just saying.
Totally.
We picked a really good time to leave.
On
Perfect.
so many levels, Trisha, so many levels.
When people ask me about how the storm is in Minnesota, I say, which one?
Have you all seen the meme that has somebody clearing like their sidewalk or their car from like 18 inches of snow, and they're saying to themselves, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have this, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have this.
I 100% remember. We don't have quakes. We don't have bitey spiders. We don't have things that try to hunt us.
Totally, totally. Where I used to live, we would have wildfires on a regular basis. And we only had to evacuate once. But just the fact that we even have to evacuate is unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate was at a doctor's appointment this morning and she told the nurse, be careful of ice, both kinds.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
There's a cute little sign at the coffee shop that we go to every morning that use an expletive ice, F ice, and then it says, because you want your coffee hot.
There you go.
It's a way to be political without being political.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things roll out in the next few days or weeks.
Fran, I put Jennifer, my Jennifer is Jenna Johnson. So it's, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. And I know you as Jenna. When I see Jennifer, I just go like I have to just catch a beat.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
Yep, no problem.
Do you like Jenna or Jennifer?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, she says it doesn't matter, but
Okay.
okay.
Well, we have another Jennifer, so having a Jenna works out brilliantly. Because in my life, we have a lot of Kates. In not only this project, but other projects. So I find that every time I send an email, I have to double check which particular Kate is this going to. And so
Fran,
used to,
I have a very specific and sort of long question about the methodology. Should I email that one as well, along with my other question?
that would be great, but you could do me a huge favor, Katrine, and that is provide the long version, but if you can bottom line it to the point where I can put it on a post-it, that'd be super helpful. So we know that there's backstory to it, but the essence of the question, if you could just bottom line that, that would be super great.
I'll echo that, and as a non-subject matter expert in this area, and this is for all the facilitation work that I do, you all have a tremendous amount of knowledge. And if the like core concern in sort of plain language speak, the more I can understand that, the better it helps me out.
And Katie, I don't know about for you, but for me, having that, knowing that there's like a whole iceberg of additional information undergirding it, it allows me, the way my brain works, to figure out what conversations kind of link together so we can keep everybody having the same conversation at the same time rather than it ping-ponging in all really important directions, but often different directions that then make it a little crazy to knit it all together. How about for you? How does that work in your world?
Yeah, that's right. And in the issues that I work on are often like this, very complex, right? Many layers of complexity, legal, political, interpersonal, family, community. And I know that we can't solve everything all at once. And so we have to move really strategically and intentionally through the problem solving work. And so the more we can sort of understand what the core concerns are, then we can tackle them in like a strategic order. So that helps me out a lot as well.
Yeah, yeah. The metaphor I often use, Katie, with my clients, along with the idea of creating a topo map so that we can see the comprehensive landscape, is also for so many things. It's kind of like when you change a tire on a car and you don't tighten up you don't tighten up one lug nut all the way. Everything kind of gets snugged up and then you tighten it all. So we sort of advance it all kind of at the same time in like little steps so that it all comes together. That's always how it feels to me. Do you have a metaphor, or do you identify with that at all?
I like that. I see co-facilitating is the best, y'all, because then you get to like steal each other's like metaphors and stuff. So I haven't heard that one, but that does resonate. That makes
Right,
sense.
yeah, yeah. When my father taught me how to change a tire, like not like taking one and going all the way was like such a like message that landed. It's so interesting, those things in our lives that sort of seem to take root in a big way. We've got about 2 more minutes on break. And then Trisha has been volunteered. In some cases, some people are voluntold. I think she's been volunteered or invited to start our introductions, and I believe that Trisha accepted that invitation. So we'll start there.
The thing I learned from driving is when my dad tried to teach me how to drive a stick shift, you really need to give people all of the information they need in order to make decisions. He forgot to tell me that when you want to shift on a stick shift, you have to step on the brake.
Step on the brake or the clutch?
The clutch, I'm sorry, on the clutch. I drive an
Okay.
automatic.
Yeah, right?
And then he got really mad that I kept killing the car.
Right, yeah, details, right? I taught a college mate of mine how to drive stick in the parking lot in like Filene's basement in like Danvers, Massachusetts or something. And I was going to use my car, which was a stick, but then like at the last minute, I decided to rent a car that was a stick. I got to tell you, that was a way better decision to teach somebody to drive stick on a rental than on your own. That was fun.
So I'm just going to chime in quick and say I would assume that if I can't do paid parent of a minor when I'm out of the country, I'm guessing I probably should submit for my $55, which is okay. But I'm just guessing that's probably an issue.
I will let you talk to Adrian or somebody on that. I think that feels like an Adrian kind of question.
Yeah, I'm sure it would cause more problems than it's even worth thinking about.
It's so funny. Great. I've got it 10 minutes after the hour, so I'm going to sort of stick to those commitments if you're all okay with that. So if you're back and comfortable and willing to put your camera on, really just makes, at least from my perspective as a facilitator, way more engaging. I will take the screen share down in a second. And maybe what I'll do is take these questions and in a minute pop them in the chat when I have access to the chat. So we want to just take the introductions beyond just like the normal like things that we're used to introducing around. So we want to know your preferred form of address so that we know how to refer to you. You're welcome to share your pronouns, but there's no requirement if you don't want to, so not an issue that way. We want to know what perspectives you're bringing to our work together. And what's so helpful that way is the more that we know each other's perspectives that way, we know when to invite different people into the conversation. If those folks aren't actively jumping in, we can say, hey, Linda Fairchild, we really want to make sure we get your voice in here. So it becomes kind of a shared responsibility that way. And then similar to that is we're working in the real world here. And so if you were to miss a meeting, what would you like us as a group to pay attention to on your behalf so that we've got shared responsibility and commitment to each other? So that's where those questions are coming from. And so as some of you may have heard while we were on break, Trisha has been invited to go first because, as you may be able to tell from her camera, she is in a very warm and luxurious place that is not found in Minnesota anywhere right now. So I'll drop those questions in the chat once I figure out where the chat is. And Trisha, feel free to take the floor.
Thank you. I'm seeing some internet stability here, so I hope you can all hear me okay. My name's Trisha Bresbine. You can refer to me as Trisha. And she, her, hers, pronouns. And then what I bring from my perspective. So I have a 16-year-old who has disabilities. And when he was born, I really became immersed in the world of disability advocacy. I ran, I was a coordinator for the Parent to Parent of Minnesota program and spent about 10 years with Family Voices of Minnesota, connecting with families all over the state and really getting to take an opportunity to engage in family leadership, learning, and then subsequent teaching. Even at a national level, it's just been very rewarding, and I love the way that my career has followed kind of my passion, with it being so personal as well. Currently, I do disability advocacy as a consultant. I am one of the founding members of the group DIVA, Disability Voice Advocates, and I do a bunch of other stuff, projects with Gillette, and family engagement is really, patient and family engagement is kind of my jam. Really meaningful, authentic engagement, making sure that we come together and really learn from each other to design, implement, and evaluate all the programs and policies that impact individuals with disabilities. I also identify as a person with a disability, and I was raised by a father who had muscular dystrophy and a mother who was a type 1 diabetic since she was 13. So I have a lot of experience from different aspects.
Yeah.
By education, I am a counseling psychologist, but I have never been licensed in Minnesota, and I really haven't practiced as a psychologist here. So that's my training, but not exactly what I do. Thankful to be here. Also, I was part of the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee, which was what existed prior to the task force being formed.
Perfect.
Did I miss anything?
Yeah, just if you were to miss a meeting, Tricia, what do you want us collectively to pay attention to on your behalf?
I think one of the things that I recently figured would be helpful would be to think about what information would be helpful for us to move forward. I think there's data and information that exists that could clear up a lot of uncertainty. I think that would be helpful. So to identify that, and then also to just really please listen to waiver recipients when they're talking about what their fears are and the collective impact of how these changes may roll out and impact the population. Because I think there's so much insight and wisdom there that we sometimes overlook.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's great. I do this with other groups, so I think we'll introduce it now if you're willing. Tricia, do you want to invite the next person in since you were invited in?
Oh boy, let's see here. I will invite Dr. Kate if Dr. Kate is ready.
Perfect.
She's one of my favorite humans.
She's a stitch too. You're gonna have to unmute. Let's watch that hot button.
Yeah, and I got to get, this may be too long and it may cut out halfway through because her computer only does certain stuff. So bear with us.
We'll dance in the moment.
I usually go by Dr. Kate in meetings of this time. I have a PhD in the history of science and medicine, with a focus on disability and disability history, especially American institutions for people with disabilities around the turn of the 20th century. I use a computer to communicate and I'm a slow typist, so I ask that people be patient while I type. I have a significant physical disability along with other health issues. I bring several perspectives to this work. I have been a waiver user for decades. I bring historical perspective to the work, both from personal experience and my academic work. I'm on the expert panel with HSRI. I am in a health equity group that focuses on disability. I'm on Ramsey County Citizens Advisory Council on Disability and Support Services. My orientation to this task force is hopeful, hesitant, concerned about the outcomes. What I care most about is protecting services that are currently in place, making sure disabled people have actual choices in where they live and what they do, especially people with high support needs, and improving the supports that allow this to happen. If I miss a meeting, this is what I want people to pay attention to.
Did that come through?
Brilliantly.
Okay.
Brilliantly. Thank you so much. Can I put you on the spot now? Do you want to invite somebody next in?
Representative Curran.
Perfect. Thank you. Representative Curran, are you behind the screen? Not seeing any change in screen that way. How about, Dr. Kate, if you're okay, I'll jump in, or do you want to pick another name?
Fran, she can't see them, so go ahead and pick.
Okay, I'm going to go to Senator Rasmussen because I figured if we're going to one elected, we'll jump to another elected.
Thanks, Fran. Jordan Rasmussen, serve in the Minnesota Senate. The perspective I bring to this work is as a member of the Senate Human Services Committee. And I would say if I miss a meeting, it'd be very helpful, for people to be thinking about what changes, if any, need to be made at a legislative level. There are changes that the Department of Human Services can make administratively, and sometimes there are changes that need to be made legislatively. And so that's kind of the focus that I have as I'm listening to the conversation here.
That's awesome. And you went so quickly. Do you, you're here as an elected, other perspectives that you might bring, Senator?
Yes, I think we have, as policymakers, have to look at things holistically, and so think about the individuals who are served by these programs. Think about budget implications and budget priorities across the human services portfolio. So those are definitely a couple of factors that legislators have to keep in mind.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you for that. Do you want to invite the next person in?
Yes, Katie Pratt, have you had a chance to go yet?
I have not. Thank you. I will
There
take
you
it
go.
over. Good to see everybody again. My name is Katie Pratt. I am the director of the Minnesota Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution, which is a long name for an office that nobody can remember, and that's fine. My office is located in the Minnesota Department of Administration, and we have a charge in our office to help Minnesotans collaborate better and resolve disputes, and we do that work broadly across the state of Minnesota with all levels and branches of government and on any issue area. So I have the great pleasure of sitting in many groups and many processes like this, where I have a lot of smart and dedicated people who are really trying to find their way through complicated issues, right? And I guess one of the perspectives I bring is strategies for how to do that, how to wind our way through what can sometimes feel very difficult and emotional work, and from that get to the wisest outcomes that we can using really the collective strength of the group. So I love being able to do that. I love when groups can get to that point where they start to get creative and they start to get problem solving and they start to oh, well, this could work this way. And instead of it feeling like just a roadblock after roadblock, they start to see the kind of avenues in the path to get through. So that's really exciting. It takes time and a lot of hard work always to get to that point. But I know that this group is not afraid of hard work. I know that about all of you. So that's great. If I were to miss a meeting, be nice to Fran. She's got a tough job. And just always knowing that you can call me up at any time, with feedback or input about this process. Fran and I are humans too. We don't do a perfect job. We do the best we can on any given day, but we're going to have blind spots and we're going to miss things. So, just let us know and we'll do the best we can. So great to be with you all. And I will pass it to, let's see, Julie Johnson.
Hello, everybody. My name is Julie Johnson. I am a service provider. I run an organization for day and employment services. I also am very connected to a trade association of service providers across the state that support people in both day employment and individualized home support services. The perspective that I bring to the work is my organization tends to serve people who have really high needs. And so ensuring that people really have the resources that they need to have access to the supports they need to thrive in the community. And also make a choice, not just deal with what they have, but truly have choice in that process. Um, if I miss a meeting and I'm going to give a different answer than I did last time we met, is that we make sure during this process that the people that are directly impacted by the work that we're doing have a voice in this process. I think that's crucially important. And I know we all know that, but we just need to be really mindful. We all have a lot of opinions, but making sure that when the rubber hits the road, it's really the people who will be directly impacted that should have a voice in how this looks.
Yeah, that's great, Julie.
Oh.
Thank you.
And I will pass it to Katrine.
Hello, I am Reverend Katrine Bachmeyer. Some people call me Kat. Some people call me Rev. I am a parent of multiple disabled participants, adults and minors residing in my home. They represent a variety of perspectives, including enrolled tribal members. And I also help administrate a number of support groups, some of the largest support groups in Minnesota. That includes MinChoice's support groups. So I am in touch daily with virtually tens of thousands of participants. I have been asked to testify on behalf of participants from their hospital beds. So I, like Julie, also work with a number of people who are really going to be severely impacted. Let's see what else. If I'm unable to attend the meeting, I'll probably watch the YouTube video, and if someone could just send me the minutes, that would be great. And just the follow-up. I'm interested in the follow-up responses to our questions.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Katrine. Do you want to invite somebody in, or should we catch Representative Curran up because they're there now?
Let's catch Representative Curran up, please.
Awesome. Sorry about that. I was listening in another room and couldn't get to my computer fast enough when you called my name. So sorry about that. First, thank you all so much for being a part of this work. From sort of the perspective that I bring, sorry, I just jumped right in. My name's Breon Curran. I'm a state representative for the White Bear Lake area. I use they and she pronouns. Coming to you all with headphones and a Vikings hat on today. Cozy inside as it's so cold outside. So again, from my perspective, I do sit on the Human Services Committee as a legislator. But deeper than that, I come from the human services background. I come directly from the disability service provider background from 20 years. And so for 10 years, I was the person who was submitting billing claims for an entire organization. And every single penny that came into the nonprofit came across my desk in some way, shape, or form. So I'm familiar with how billing works. I'm familiar with how budgeting works, how staffing patterns work. I'm very familiar with the utilization factors in rates, and is something that I have sort of in my back pocket to work on, because I think that utilization piece really has it's got a reputation for being something that it isn't, and I think that we really need to make that part of the standard rate and not pick it out anymore. Is utilization? It's just the cost of running a business like that with staff. So I don't want that to be in jeopardy of being cut in the future. So I would love to just actually remove the label and stick it into the full rate where I believe it's deserved. So aside from changing statutes and state law and writing bills that can potentially fix some of this or remove some barriers for folks or increase funding, right? The other thing that we can do as legislators is offer spaces where folks who need to be at the table can be there. There's not always a bill for every issue, or maybe not written yet, but what I have seen, especially over the last several months, is a significant lack of a platform for people receiving services and the providers who provide that service, a lack of a platform for people to provide their input. And so that's also something as legislators that we can do to support this work together. If it's not carrying a bill, it's giving you, a platform, like I said, on public record where you can say the things you need to say that are not in an email where you're not sure if it gets to the right person or if it's taken seriously or whatever those concerns might be. So I will keep working for folks to have their time in front of a microphone as deserved. I think that's equally important to writing impactful laws. And then from my perspective, again, if I were to miss a meeting, really, I just need to know what it is that you might need from me. And if it is making more connections to people who are decision makers, even though those of you in this meeting really should be the decision makers, especially if you're receiving services or providing them. I would love to give you all more weight, however that looks, in all of these conversations. So if I can be helpful in that way, please let me know. And yeah, I think that's all I got.
That's great. You want to tap the next person in?
Oh yeah, let's see who hasn't gone yet.
And just so you know, I am keeping track.
All right. Let's see. Looking through, I'm gonna pick a name here. All right. Has Linda gone yet?
I think we have two. Do you want Linda Fairchild or Linda Wolford?
Linda W. Have you gone yet?
No, I have not.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brianne.
All right.
You
Take it
and I
away.
got to have a nice conversation at the state fair this year at our state
Oh, that's
fair.
awesome.
Minnesota Council on Disability, so I remember well.
Awesome. Good to see
Thank
you.
you. Good to see you too. My name is Linda Walford. I prefer Linda as my how to refer to me. I use she, her pronouns. And the third one's going to be the longest for me is what perspectives I bring to the work. I will not deny I'm 63 years old, so I fit into both senior and a person with a disability, lifelong disability. I was diagnosed at age 2 with a neuromuscular condition, spinal muscular atrophy. If I have to say that, but there's a few of us SMAers around, but not as old as me, most of them. I have been on services after I started to attend college. Prior to that, my parents raised me in rural Minnesota, in on a farm, a small town in southwestern Minnesota. So I have some perspectives of being in greater Minnesota where there weren't a lot of services. At the time I grew up, there were no services, in fact. So, which is quite different than today. And so also in my career, of which I'm gonna make this announcement right here, is that I will be retiring from state service in March. However, I'm gonna say that I've already had a discussion with David Dively, our director at MCD, and he is planning to contract with me to stay on this task force, so it will still represent MCD if everything goes smoothly with that process. So he felt that I was still the person that would be best to represent the council here. So I will also probably be doing some other contracting work. So I'm not going away. And I already am a consultant to do mostly training and education on disability rights, services, justice, as well as my role of government relations director at the Minnesota Council on Disability, where I've been for just over a year. Prior to that, I was Calla in the room here, in that I was the deputy director of the Disability Services Division just for over a year. I lost both my parents last year, so it was a tough year for me. So I transitioned into a little less demanding role, I will say. Nothing There was nothing about me not loving working at DHS and trying to help people with disabilities, as I know that I've relied upon services when I got on them without currently, I don't have any family members, so maybe unique in that that provide services to me. So I live in my own home in Roseville. I receive round the clock care from just right now PCA services, transitioning obviously to CFSS. But I have been on a waiver before and am eligible obviously for institutional level of care. As I have very little arm movement, I use dictation, so sometimes I'm pausing or writing something. Just bear with me that it might take me a minute. I'm also suffering right now a kind of bad respiratory infection that just doesn't seem to want to let up. I've had it since Christmas, and so just when it gets better, I woke up today with just not a good day. But I didn't want to miss this meeting, of course. Also, similar to Trish's background, I have a master's in counseling psychology from St. Cloud State University, and kind of work with a rehab emphasis, working with people with disabilities, more in vocational. But in my career, I never got like licensed or anything like that. But I have worked in higher ed. I was at the University of Minnesota in various capacities for 20 years, both as a service provider in the Disability Resource Center, Disability Services, and also as the associate director and later director of a program called the Diversity Institute. So I've done a lot of disability justice work in terms of trying to bring together people with disabilities and people of color, because we've obviously been a pretty white movement, and I just think that goes along with, I've also at DHS was working on, I've both been a home care policy person there, as well as coordinating workforce shortage initiatives there for like 5 or 6 years. Got to work with Mike Kier-Tessner in that area from the Olmsted office. So I bring a lot of perspectives. And if I were to miss a meeting, I'm just gonna kind of call something out that I want to use, that we're a pretty white group. Not all, but pretty white. And I try to pay attention to that in terms of equity, that we are, I know it's kind of become a nasty word right out there now, but I still think that we need to pay attention to equity and equitable services, and who's getting services. And so I'd want to make sure that in our discussions, in our lenses, that we bring that perspective or think about that perspective of how um, it's different when you are white than if you are a person of color receiving services or not receiving services. Maybe I should add that. So that's a very important issue to me. And then obviously I agree that people impacted along with just disability justice should be centered, and their voices should be centered. So that's what I will say. And sorry if I took so long. And then I am going to pick on Mike Tesner. So
I see you, Mike. And unmuting is lower left-ish. Yeah, I can't unmute. Anna, are you able to unmute Mike on his behalf? We ran into this last time, didn't we, Mike, when you were in the hybrid space? Yep. Nuts.
Yep, it is on his end. You will have to unmute on your own.
Damn. Sorry I said that.
maybe write in the chat and then move on to someone. I don't know, just thinking about moving on.
Yep.
And I
And
can
Mike,
pick.
Mike, we're gonna let you work on that. So that's fine. Linda, do you want to make a different call?
Yeah, I will. Let me see who I'm looking through the group here. Calla, since you are my successor, can I pick you?
Sure, that sounds good. My name is Kala Oftedal. She, her, hers, pronouns. Again, like Linda said, I am the current Disability Services Division Deputy Director. So I report directly to Heidi Hamilton, who's a member of the task force here. And my role within the project specifically is just to help support the leadership of the project. So you'll see me do a lot of kind of hybrid in between, kind of a mix between project management and sponsor is kind of where my position or my role within Waiver Reimagine lies. To share, I guess, a little bit about me, I'm newer to DHS. I started back in March of 2025. So I've been here about 10 months now, and I'm really enjoying it. Waiver Reimagine was not a project that I was planning to be part of when I first came to DHS. So that's been a journey for me. I was brought onto the project back in late August. So I've been with the project just a few short months. I will say that prior to the leadership role that I played within DHS in the project, prior to this, I've worked for lead agencies. So much of my career is been through Dakota and Ramsey counties, where I've played multiple different roles. All of them have been in disability services. But I started as a waiver case manager and then I was one of the first initial assessors, certified assessors back in the state back in, I don't know, 2011, 2012, a year back then. I can't remember exactly. And then moved into some leadership roles and my administrative roles as well within those counties. So I'm excited to be here. My undergrad is in nursing, so something a little bit different, but then my graduate degree is in public affairs. So I have both of a blend of kind of clinical background as well as some leadership pieces. And again, my greatest interest, I guess, or the perspective that I bring is I have some oversight and some input into the project timeline as a whole. And when I say project timeline, I don't set the effective date or the go live date of Waiver Reimagine of the January 1, 2027, but I'm along with a team of many other people, including Adrian on the call here, am constantly working to try to pull all the puzzle pieces together by that date. And so that's my main goal or my main interest is just to help ensure that all these puzzle pieces are operating, they get fully, kind of flushed out and designed, and then that these pieces all come together in the end to make up an end-to-end Waiver Reimagine transition for people starting in 2027. And so, part of that, a lot of it includes helping to support, ensuring that people are supported really well, that things aren't disruptive, that we don't have a lapse or a termination or a suspension of services, and that people's well-being is cared for. It's helping to support the interests of the agency and the goals that we have within our agency around what the project will actually achieve at the end. It's a variety of different staff within DHS, within Minnesota's IT department. We have regular communication and correspondence, helping to delegate tasks, ensuring that there's communication, and then also decision making that happens within that. So a lot of different people who are involved, and a lot of different interests that we're trying to meld together to make for good outcomes. So I'm grateful to be here with you all. If I miss a meeting, things that I'm really paying attention to is where are we missing the mark? You all help to elevate things, whether it's in our storyline, whether it's from a really technical aspect of, hey, we could be doing better in certain spaces, and you all help to elevate where those gaps are and things that we could be enhancing or improving for all of you. And so that's really what I'm attentive to when I'm at the meetings. I'm trying to be responsive to your wants and your needs, as well as who you all represent, and then just trying to make for a better outcome for all who are involved. So thank you for having me. I will call on Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. I am Lisa Harrison-Handler. I am the Ombudsman for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities. I prefer Lisa is fine, she, her pronouns. I think as I think about the perspective that I bring to this work together is just acknowledging that we are collectively tasked with navigating our way forward through what I consider sort of the messy middle of public policy making, and really trying to be, outcome focused in a way that proactively prevents there being any winners or losers in this process, such that all people are cared for as we go forward. I think if I were to miss a meeting, I would appreciate paying attention to that we're not just setting minimum standards here. We're not just trying to meet people's basic needs for services and supports, but phrasing it in terms of the mission of my office, which is to promote those highest attainable standards of services, treatment, efficiency, and justice for those that are receiving services and the providers that support them. And I will, Adrian, I don't think we've heard from you yet.
Sure. Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrienne Hannert. I work for DSD, the Disability Services Division, that's DHS, Human Services. And I know many of you because I've been supporting folks as they applied and came on to the task force. I've been working as a project manager on Waiver Reimagine for about 3.5 years. I've worked at DHS for a little bit longer. Actually worked on Olmsted plan work with Mike years ago before COVID, and I have a background in homelessness, ending homelessness, and housing, affordable housing work. Got 2 kids, I don't know, 9th grader and 7th grader. And I'm working a lot with CALA, and I would say I am someone to connect with. I pride myself in connecting others. So if you've got a question, more than likely I'm not going to be the one that can answer, but I can tell you who to talk to and I can make that connection. So it's one of my favorite things to do, and everyone has my email address too. Happy to be here, and if you need anything, just reach out. And
if you were to miss a meeting, Adrian, what do you want us to pay attention to on your behalf?
Just make sure everyone gets their reimbursement form. And Chris, have you gone? All right, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, friend. My name is Chris Erickson. I am the mom of a 14-year-old kiddo who receives a CAC waiver. Also a mom of 2 kids that are grown and flown who have made it very clear that I annoy them when I check in on their ice storm status. I'm also a nurse of 26 years, and I use this phrase a lot. It's a quote that I did not come up with, but when you hear galloping hooves, expect horses, not zebras. My kiddo is a zebra. He has a rare constellation of diagnoses, and so we don't follow a textbook. And so my brain is wired to say, okay, plans A, B, and C are going to happen, but my kid's going to have plan Z. And so that's kind of how my brain works, is looking at all the possible outcomes. Nursing trained me to do that, but then being my kiddo's mom really just turned that dial up. So I'm always looking at, oh, look out for the ice over here. And so that's kind of how my brain thinks. I really love how Lisa said the highest attainable standard. I really respect that, of not setting the bare minimum, of really looking at what's that highest potential. So I come from Iowa. We moved from Iowa to Minnesota as Iowa privatized their Medicaid. And that is what drove me to go to the Capitol in Iowa, was to testify and say, oh, the sky is falling, because the sky at the moment was falling. And then going to Minnesota, I am white, privileged, middle-aged mom, and I couldn't get through the door. I couldn't get services for my kid, and I kept knocking and knocking and kicking and screaming, and I ended up at the Capitol because I couldn't get anywhere. And then I also met Trisha in the Gillette waiting room, and she introduced me through the parent group, and that kind of opened up this advocacy of, here we go. So here we are, trying to break down the barrier. So that's a little bit of what I do. But if I were not at a meeting, I would want to look at representing or thinking about the most vulnerable with the least access, and how do people that fall into that group gain a voice? And I feel like that has been my job, is that I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. You may not know what it's like to walk in my shoes, but we're on the same path and we're sharing the same view. sometimes it's pretty and sometimes it's challenging. So how do we lend our voice to people who may not have a voice, or how do we close our mouths and give those people the opportunity to be heard? And then accessibility of the least accessible population. How do we take that lens and making sure that this path that we're on is the most accessible? Thank you. And with that, I will ask for Ms. Moorview.
Thanks, Chris. I think did you pass it to me? Sorry, I was just fixing my headset. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I hope you can hear me okay.
We
It
can hear
says I
you
need
more
my headset to
perfectly.
charge. Okay,
Yep.
perfect. It's like it need to charge. So anyway, thank you. I am More Vu. She, her pronouns. You can call me More. As introduced before, I'm currently serving as the interim assistant commissioner of aging and disability services at DHS. So in this role, I oversee disability services division where Waiver Reimagine sits. And so provide some oversight and leadership in this space. But I would say that in this task force, the perspective that I bring, not just only where I sit at DHS, but also as someone who has been working in this field, and I'm saying this for like 20 something years, starting out as direct support professional. So I actually was in a meeting with Representative Karen before, and it's like, yes, I do. I have wiped adult diapers before in that space, and then also, as I work my way through as a direct support to providing in-home services for people in the DD waiver and CAC, CADBI, also doing case management and assessors and moving into a different leadership role in my work. But I also say that one of the other perspective I bring is really for someone with family, someone that has family member who are accessing this service, especially from the perspective of a person of color or from a marginalized community, and how to access the system. And I hear loud and clear, I think a lot of you have echoed that even in your most educated affluence, as a member, navigating our system is difficult. So just imagine how that is for someone who doesn't speak or understand the language. And part of what I strongly believe in Waiver Reimagine is how can we simplify our system so that it's easier to access regardless of who you are or the language you speak. It's easy enough that you don't not need to have a PhD to even navigate. And even maybe with PhD, it's still very complicated because it's speak its own language, right? And so that's the perspective I bring, and with all the lived experience and just through working, and also like I said, family being impacted or accessing the system, how are those collide and blend it together and make it better. And if I were to miss a meeting, really, I think Kala touched on this about things that we misstepped. What can we do better? Opportunity where we can work as collaborative as we can in this space to make it better. And then also really looking at the voices that we're not hearing at this table, right? Who are we missing? And how are they, if we could bring these folks to this table, what would they say? So I think just really keeping that in the back of our mind as we navigate through this and work this out. So that is me, and just really an honor to be here and be part of this task force. I would like to move to, is it Jennifer Ballinger? You are here.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Ballinger. I work for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. I'm also a member of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. My title for my position is the Waiver Services Relation Liaison Manager. So it's just a big, long title to say that I kind of do a little bit of everything. I do boots on the ground work. When there's not enough staff to go around, I will sometimes miss a meeting because I prioritize our community members. I am in this role. I am on this task force as a provider service. Can't remember. We're a service provider for HCBS services. So right now, currently, we are able to bill for homemaking and for waiver transportation and meal delivery services. We want to grow our capacity, but at the same time, we're unable to because of all the barriers within DHS to become a service provider. Just capacity building is nearly impossible. Being in a very rural area, there is no provider of choice. There's no providers. I guess I want to highlight that. If I miss a meeting, I want that to stay in the forefront when everybody's so privileged that they have service providers and they don't want to lose them. That's one perspective. Now think if you didn't even get a choice to have that service provider and now they're taking off your agreement from the min-choice assessment, now it's forgotten about, that you don't even get it anymore. They're not even looking for it anymore. If after 6 months you can't find a service provider, it's taken off your agreement. So that's why before I brought it up, it's like, how are they going to use that data when it's lost after a certain amount of time? It's off the record. So if we as a service provider being under the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, if we're not offering the service, whether we're billing for it or not, our community goes without. So just think of all the other things besides meal delivery, homemaking, transportation, and companionship we provide, but we don't bill for companionship. We don't bill for meal prep. But we do all these things that anybody in the area, they do not get. And so I just want to keep that at the forefront where there needs to be, and I know right now there's I think 14 services. Many of them are focused on the home setting, having somebody at home, which is the most cost-effective way of taking care of somebody and having them live their best life, is keeping them in their home, within their community, with their family, with their friends. And they have put a freeze on new providers enrolling, current providers to expand their services. And I don't understand where that made sense at all. And I understand there's fraud, waste, and abuse, but there's fraud, waste, and abuse in nursing homes and assisted living facilities and group homes as well. But yet they don't have this freeze, and it's causing harm. And how is that even fixing the situation where I'm at in other rural areas too? It's just creating a huger problem. People are dying. People are getting shipped out miles and miles away to a facility that they will never see their family again because now transportation is an issue. They don't have enough gas money. They don't have a car. They can't go and visit them. And they die alone. I really want everybody to understand that piece. And when I'm gone and I have to miss a meeting, is to just remember the impacts that if we don't make these changes quickly and expedite the enrollment process, expedite the access of service, then we're harming the citizens of Minnesota. Thank you.
Jennifer, thanks for sharing that. Who do you want to tap on their shoulder? We still have to hear from Linda Fairchild, Jenna Johnson, Meredith, Gretchen. I don't know if Heidi's back. Okay.
Who you said first? Fairchild?
Linda Fairchild.
Linda Fairchild.
Hello, my name is Linda Fairchild, and I am a family foster care provider, and I have been one for 37 years.
Wow.
I specialize in high needs and medically fragile. I have people that have lived with me for 20 to 37 years. So they are my life. So I bring that perspective of a family provider. I also do a support group for 190 family providers throughout the state of Minnesota, keeping them in the know of what's going on, what is changing, how do we stay functional. So that is kind of where I come from. So I love my people, they are my life. So let's see.
You want
If
the
I
questions, Linda?
missed, pardon?
Do you want the questions? I can toss them to you.
I wrote them down, so I'm just trying to decipher. So I do, like I said, the support group. I also work with ARM, and I'm pretty vocal with DHS, asking questions all the time. So what I want to do or have you share with me if I miss a meeting is, number one, be able to listen to the YouTube, because I think you all have very valid, interesting aspects that I think we all need to know and understand. We all come from different places. So that is very valuable. And I want to make sure that we all have a seat at the table, that everybody understands that wherever you live, that fills a niche, whether it's a corporate home, a family home, an individual's home, and an apartment. There is a need for all of them. So making sure that everybody gets a seat at the table to explain. And also I like the idea that Fran had about making sure we vet whatever we do, so that we know that it's going to work and that it's going to be successful. Too often I see programs set up and they forget how it's going to impact everybody else. So then that becomes a lost thing, just like what Jennifer was saying. Things change and they forget whoever is doing the changes, whether it's DHS or legislature, people, they're doing their job. And I understand everybody has to do their job, but sometimes it's the end effect that is not taken into consideration as how that trickle down effect will happen with everybody. So, and I will pick Gretchen.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
I'm Gretchen Spire. I have had a long history in college, working for a variety of group homes in the St. Paul area. I worked direct care, both as a life skills worker and as a group home staff for people with developmental disabilities. I was a job coach for an organization for a while. Once I graduated from college with a degree in social work, a couple years after that, I went and got my master's in social work. Turned to working with children and families and child protection for a while, and then I transitioned back into working with as a case manager for people with adults with developmental disabilities at a Ramsey County. Was a case manager for Dakota County for a short time, and then I transitioned to Hennepin County many years ago. I've been with Hennepin County for 26 years. 25 of those are in the department of our long-term care services and supports. I was a DD children's case manager for many years. I was on a specialty team that kids with disabilities who were in out-of-home placement. I did that for about 13 years, 13, 14, and then I became a supervisor, overseeing the rollout of MIN choices for people with developmental disabilities. I was a supervisor for several years before I became a program manager. As a program manager, I'm one of 3 managers at Hennepin that oversees annual MinChoice assessments. So we have multiple teams, 20 teams in Hennepin County that do annual MinChoice assessments, and I oversee several of those teams. I was on the task force for Waiver Reimagine. When my colleague retired, I took her spot. And then with this new task force, local county governments had 1 slot, and that was through MAXA, Minnesota Association of Social Service Administrators. And I expressed an interest in continuing my work with Waiver Reimagine, and so I was appointed as MAXA's rep for this task force. So my perspective here is to bring county social service perspective. I report back to MAXA during meetings, just letting them know how the progress is going and so forth. Some of my senior leaders at our county serve on the other long-term services and supports task force that are with the state. So we kind of collaborate together. So I have a very vested interest in this work, coming from the county perspective and my direct care work experience. We have a variety of concerns from a county perspective in terms of ensuring there's a smooth rollout. We have time to appropriately roll out this program to all the families that are impacted across the state. There are some lots of concerns with that, and just needing lead time, appropriate lead time, so we can operationalize it with our small counties and our large counties. What looks like from a Hennepin perspective with how big our county is, it's going to be a different rollout than a smaller county, and being in tune, because anytime there's little to big change, it impacts so many people that we provide services across the state. So that is a huge concern from my perspective. And let's see, what else do you want to know? Oh, I go by she, her pronouns. Really appreciated the in-person meeting, even though we were in a tundra storm. That was great to be with all of you. What else?
If you were to miss a meeting, I hear the lead times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope to not miss a meeting, but certainly taking that perspective of how are we going to operationalize this fairly? We need to have lead time. Some of this shortening of the windows, like we're still moving forward, but there's pieces not all together is concerning. So that's my concern.
Yeah. I suspect you're not alone with that.
I don't know who else is. I'm gonna pick the next. You read off a list. I think I was on the bottom. Who's right up from me? Pick that person.
I've got it. No problem that way. We're just gonna take a pause for a second because Mike put his comment in the chat. So I want to make sure that people know that his comments are there. So thank you, Mike. And what we can do is work with Anna to set up a sample WebEx or whatever it is, and we can work out that technology. So thanks for doing that. And then I think we've got Meredith and Jenna Johnson. So how about we start with Jenna and then we'll jump to Meredith.
Okay, I'm actually Cindy, Jennifer's mother. She's getting some medical care right now that she has to do at this time of day. So if I can, her and I talked, I'll just fill in for her. She goes by she, her. Jenna's 43 years old, and she's had services since she was 3 years old. Before that, I did it all myself. She waited 12 years to get a waiver, and that was a very difficult thing. And I wanted her to be independent, so we bought a house that has a apartment in the lower level, so she's got her independence. And the important thing to me, I retired from my career as a real estate agent, I help people with disabilities buy their own homes. Like, I don't know if you guys remember Cliff Potes. I had a whole bunch of individuals that could live more independently, and I helped them buy homes. But I'm now retired. In advocacy, I worked 30 years as a disability advocate with ARC of Minnesota and ARC of the US. I was the governmental affairs chair for the US. And I worked so hard, and the work I did, I know led to Jenna having a good life right now. And I never intended to do advocacy again, but I have two things. I want to teach Jenna to speak up for herself. If I'm not here, I want her to be able to do it. And she's doing great. And I also think this is such a threat to her services and her independent life that to me it was worth giving up retirement and traveling to get to do this committee. Jenna has a lot of experience. She can't always speak up easily. It takes her a little while longer, but she did the Governor's Council on Disabilities, Partners in Policymaking. And I've taken her with a lot, like even to DC, like she met Hillary Clinton. She's just met Paul Wellstone. She was back in the day. A lot of times she would come with me and I would say what I wanted to say, and then she would say a couple sentences. So Jenna's been doing this since she was about 12 and very effective. I mean, she usually will say something, but it's usually the right thing. And she's very adamant that she wants to live in her own home. You know, we did all this work and provided this home for her. And that's really important to her. And I think we built the best life for her. She nearly died several times. And I'm just so grateful she's here. She's taught me so much, and she's such a blessing. I'm 70 now, and I'm still taking care of her every time somebody doesn't show up, and I help people. So I do a lot of unpaid care that I don't even get paid for. But I'm teaching her to be a strong advocate, speak up when she needs to. And I would appreciate if we can't be at a meeting, or like right now when she's getting medical care, that we remember the Jennas, remember her face, remember a lot of her friends who can't speak up. Jenna will tell some of her friends, well, I'm speaking up for you guys too. So just remember them, because it's their life. We get to choose what we want in life. We can get a better job, make more money, move. We can do what we want in life, but they don't have choices if they don't have the services.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I covered it. Did I?
Yeah, Cindy, that was great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And I think that leaves Meredith. Meredith, are you behind your nameplate there? I have to ask you to unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I'm
We
trying to
can
get the
hear
video.
you. That's fantastic.
Okay. Also, oh, there we got the video too. So my name is Meredith McKinnon, and I go by Meredith. I use she, her pronouns. I was a member of the Waiver Reimagine committee prior to joining this task force. I'm a waiver participant. Also, prior to that, since the late 90s, I've been a social worker. I had probably 15 years of a full-time career. Some of it was in the community as a case manager, but most of it was working in the hospital. So I think that I bring the perspective of having seen kind of both sides professionally, and then bringing in the element of having a disability myself. So I would say that, when I was working in my career, I didn't really understand as a professional what it was like as a person with a disability. And, to an extent, I probably couldn't have, but some of that's just lived experience. So, um, I would hope that if I wasn't at a meeting, that, we would continue to listen to the voices of people who will be impacted most by these decisions that we're making, people with disabilities and family members, and those of us who can speak up for ourselves, and those of us who, some people can't, and to keep this entire community in mind. And also, just kind of as a side note, I'm not super comfortable with technology and like talking to a computer, so I can tend to be a little bit more quiet, but I'm really working on
on that and sharing my perspective and being out in the community and talking to people and how this new legislation impacts everybody. So kind of reaching beyond just the meetings, but also talking to providers and people I know and friends and formally and informally and people that are even maybe not even involved in the disability community, just the general public, I think, needs to know what's going on too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Meredith. I want to offer if Eliana or Anna want to weigh in just because they're a part of our meetings. So, and you can jump in or you can take a pass, whichever you prefer.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. My name is Elian Sorensen. I am the note taker. I work for a public consulting group, and I'm very interested in the work you all are doing and excited to see how it goes. As a person with a disability, it matters to me too, and I'm happy to be here.
That's great. Thanks, Eliane. Anna, do you want to weigh in at all?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Yesberger. I work for the Disability Services Division, and I am here for tech support. So if you have any questions about WebEx, feel free to put those in the chat, and I'll help you out.
Perfect. I don't know if it's appropriate to invite the cart captioner in, but I want to be inclusive that way if it is. I'm not seeing anything in my world, so I'm going to keep going. And if you all are comfortable, I'll just sort of share where I'm coming from for what it's worth for you all. So I'm Fran Van Houten. You will often see Francis when my last name is attached. I mostly go by Fran, but I go by Francis when my last name is there because by the time I was 8 years old, I had heard enough of Fran Van. So it's a little bit of that childhood ghost in me that way. I go by she, her. And the perspective I bring is I am not a parent. I am 60 something or other, 63-ish. But I have worked as a professional facilitator for 25 years. And my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering. My master's is in organization development. So I mentioned the engineering because I am a systems person. I like process a lot. And Edward Deming was a professional in quality assurance who during World War II is the one who advanced quality assurance in like Toyota, and the Japanese automobile industry after the US had said we weren't really interested in your thoughts. And what I really embrace about some of his teachings is the ideas of that when systems fail, they don't fail because someone messed up. They typically fail because it's been a process problem. And so you are going to find me paying attention to process and really sort of managing process that way. And it's with that thinking in mind. The other thing I've shared with some of you in our one-on-one conversations is that I have a younger brother. Younger is relative now when you're in your 60s, right? But I have a younger brother who suffered an open traumatic brain injury in 1999 and lives in supportive housing in California as a result of that. But I was his hospital advocate and into his early transitions to find that housing. So while I don't have direct lived experience that way personally, I have cared for or been a companion for people who have walked that journey. So I don't speak your language fluently. I'm not even going to try to speak your language fluently, but I am going to try to listen in ways that I can ask more questions to pay attention to where do we go next and how do we get those questions addressed and things answered. So that's what I come with. And so if I were to miss a meeting, what would I want everyone to pay attention to? I would actually really ask that as we develop our process and we find that it works for us, that you kind of hold to that. That it's not just Katie and I who are there to sort of hold that center, but that we work together to work on a process that supports all of us for the collective good. Because I have found when I have missed a meeting, it's been like a bunch of 4-year-olds playing soccer. It's a little bit of a scramble. And so if you can put on a little bit of a process hat that way, that works on behalf of the group, I think that would be fantastic. I don't know about for all of you, but I just loved that. How did that land for you all? Just give me a sense of that. There's so much expertise and wisdom just contained in this space, not to mention all the communities you have access to. I am so excited for us to be able to tap into that, just mind blowing. And in all honesty, I don't know that we could have done it with the same richness if we had done it in meeting 1 or 2. So I think we harness all the gifts however they appear. One little tickler here is I had asked as part of pre-work if you all could fill out these profile sheets, and I sent the questions, and some of you are still doing them, no problem. But if you haven't done that, I'm happy to send the questions out again and the link. But this to me provides a little bit of a snapshot. So when we're looking for somebody, we can be like, oh, we forgot about that from Jennifer Belanger's perspective, but let's see if we can have her in on this conversation. So if you're willing to do that, that would be fantastic. We've got a bit more to cover that we're going to cover kind of fast track. I'm kind of thinking, though, a little bit of a break would be good. So how do you all feel about a little bit of a 5-minute sort of move around, reset, and then we'll come back? Good? Perfect. I will be here if anyone needs me. We are on break. Share my.
Hey, Fran, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Trisha. Yes.
It's cutting in and out. I've missed a little bit of what people are saying. So if I disappear,
You just disappeared. So we get it. We're dealing with the real world. So no problem.
well, if you can hear me, I appreciate it very much. And I will connect to figure out what I missed.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Trisha. Thanks for breaking into your vacation to do this.
I wish I could have done more. Thank you.
Enjoy. God, it makes me want to go to Mexico.
Me too.
Right? Yeah. Just planted that seed. I work regularly with the federal government, so I'm super interested in if we're going to have another government shutdown.
Sounds like it's highly likely.
Right? Maybe if we do one, maybe if we have one, Jennifer, Julie, it will be short.
I hope so. It's just so disruptive.
So disruptive. So disruptive.
And here with, in Minnesota with all that's going on, it just seems like, of course, we're going to have a shutdown. I mean, why would we not?
Right, of course, because
nothing else
on
is
a
going on.
roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope not. So great. So glad we did that.
So yeah, you can do it.
It's okay. Jenna, Cindy, you guys are unmuted, so I want to make sure you know that. So whatever
Oh,
conversation you're having at home, we can hear.
sure. No, that's okay.
Okay.
Did you see Jenna's dad?
We did see Jenna's dad, and now he's fuzzy in the background somewhere.
There he is. He's fuzzy in the background.
Hello.
Hi there. Are we going to get to see Gracie too?
Oh yeah, where's Gracie?
Where's Gracie Lulu?
She's been trying to get in. She's been trying to get in the room.
I love it.
Come here, my girl. My child.
My child.
Oh,
Yeah, this is Jenna's fur baby.
Yeah, so
My
awesome.
baby.
I love it.
She's your sweetheart, isn't she?
How much does she weigh?
About 12.
Nice.
12 pounds maybe.
Yep.
So Jenna's able to handle her. If she was much bigger, she wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, did you say hi? Say hi. Gracie Lou.
Oh, so adorable. So adorable. I was like a step dog mom to a 7-pound white ball of fluff. That was just wonderful.
I have a 4-pound Maltese upstairs. That's mine because we live upstairs. She lives downstairs.
Yep.
And they don't like each other, so they have to stay in their own space.
This is perfect. You have the perfect house for that then.
They play with each other.
No, they don't. Not much.
Yeah,
Not
totally.
much.
That's great.
Yeah.
If folks are back, I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras back on. We are going to click through some things very, very quickly. This is just such a great meeting. You all have just like made my heart happy. So thank you for that. Let me stop this. Get to that. Okay. Let's see who acknowledged that. Yes, it looked like Anna acknowledged that, Mike. So hopefully you're going to get a phone call. Perfect. Okay, thank you. We have about a half an hour left to our meeting. So thank you for hanging in there. How did that feel to just get away from the screen for a minute? Kind of good. Yeah. Yeah. So a couple things that I'm just going to click through very quickly because I don't think they're the highest and best use of our time to talk about. I just want to give you a heads up on a couple of things. So, one of the workflow things we want to get in place is when people want to send a letter to the task force. You know, dear task force members, I want you to know about X, Y, or Z, which is great. But if they go to you as individuals, we don't necessarily have that data in the central database to allow us to extract that data through reports and keyword searches and all of that. So just at this point, we can discuss it in more detail, but if you get any letters or emails or anything from anybody that says Dear Task Force member, I'm going to ask you to forward it to the generic Waiver Reimagine email address, and that will make sure it lands into the central database that way. I will send this email address out to you so that you've got it. It's just note to self. If it's not already included in the email that you receive, we're just going to ask you to loop it in. So, and we'll work behind the scenes to get all that system established. So hopefully that's good for folks. This was our break time, so I'm going to have us move on. Okay. So let's, oh, Linda, you get your hand up. No, okay, you're just waving hi. Thank you. We want to talk a little bit about the work groups. I was hoping that we'd have a little more time to talk about them. So I'm just going to hit some of the highlights and then we'll go from there. So the first thing is I want to reset the intentions behind working in breakout groups. So part of this is being in this sprint phase, as you will likely recall, and we want to do really important work that will help to inform the submission to CMS. So now maybe we've got a little more time to do that, but we want to make sure if there's anything that we can add to that, we try to get that identified. The next thing is to daylight things that don't make sense. And we heard a couple of folks during their introductions talk about, particularly from DHS, you know, where is there a gap? Where is it not working? And one of the things that's been going on in the back of my mind as we sort of unveil more and more parts of the system is this a communication issue? Is this a system issue? Or is this both? And as I try to get at least my feet under me, I feel like some things are communication disconnects, some things are definitely system things, and some things are both. So as we work together in these breakout groups, I think we'll be able to identify where are some of those things so we can figure out what are quick things we can clean up and where do we need to put deeper dive and deeper attention. I am hoping that the work of the breakout groups will help to inform content for preliminary report of findings. Sorry for the typo there. I thought I caught that one. Findings and recommendations. And so that we don't necessarily have to wait until the end of the year to submit our final findings. We can sort of figure out a way to advance some of the things that are emerging so that the legislature is kept informed. And then the last bullet here is the intention of the work groups is to help build a foundation for the ongoing work of the task force. So that's really the sort of meta there. The work group next steps, as I understand them, in part informed by requests from some of you, is to connect the duties of the task force to the statute. To connect the work groups to the duties of the task force. And that was from the statute. We want to identify members of the groups and then plan for the first set of meetings. So I'm going to click through some of this really quickly. And if we need to come back around, we can. But I just want to let you know what I have. So connecting to the duties of the task force, I was prepared to talk about at our December meeting, but the snow and the timing of the meeting didn't really accommodate that. So with the help of my friends at ChatGPT, I've analyzed this a couple of ways. So what I have here is just a table of the different work groups and sort of the broad brush statutory duties that these will likely touch on. I'm not going to read everyone right now. I can send this out in a separate email to you. But the other way I organized this is I took each of those task force duties that are defined in statute and crosswalked it with the work groups. And I think the takeaway from this is for each of the duties, you are likely to see 2, if not 3 work groups attending to each of those elements. And I think that makes this a very powerful structure, because if we think about using the topographical map landscape metaphor, it means that people are going to be looking at the same thing from different perspectives. So I think it adds a rigor and a robustness so that we're not just looking at from single perspectives. The other thing to remember is that all of the work of the work groups is going to be coming back to the task force. So we're going to be cross-pollinating and reviewing that data as a group. So unless you really need me to go through this right now, we've got that background there. So we can loop back around if we need to. I'm going to take it as good enough for now so you can see what's there. Not expecting you to read it, Linda, not at all. And I can send it out. I just wanted to give an overview of it. So thank you for that. So here we are. So what I have here is a table of for each of the groups. So I'm starting with the scenarios group. And for each of these, I have a statement of the broad intention of the group, the kinds of things that the work will inform, the alignment with statute, sample questions, the participants that I know about so far, and possibility of when to meet. Okay, so I'm going to stop this share because I don't want you to think that you have to read this, but I wanted you to know that I've got this for each of the work groups. And here's a couple of things I want to highlight. So far for, I think, each of the groups, or 3 out of 4 of them, we are going to have DHS staff representation as part of those groups. So in that spirit of working more collaboratively, the breakout groups are going to allow for us to pull subject matter experts from DHS staff roles to help us collectively learn. And it's not like just DHS bringing perspective. It's going to be shared learning. So for instance, with this scenarios group, my intention, if the group is willing, is we will do something called journey mapping and map the journey of a participant from a participant perspective. So then we can add what happens from a DHS perspective, but it's not going to be the DHS agenda. It's going to be the on the ground lived experience agenda that's going to set the trajectory for that. So I've got a number of folks that have signed up for that one, the scenarios group, including Julie Johnson, Senator Rasmussen, Jennifer Ballinger, Kala has volunteered, and a representative from the program integrity team at DHS. I will do this via a separate email, but my hope is that for those folks I just mentioned, we could look at Monday late afternoons to meet. It doesn't mean every Monday, but because of my travel schedule, I have blocked out Mondays and Fridays to be most flexible in terms of work group needs. So if we can coalesce around a Monday late afternoon for this group to meet periodically, that would be helpful. So Julie Johnson, Senator Rasmussen, Jennifer Ballinger, Kala, and a DHS representative from the program integrity team. Keep an eye out for an email from me checking for your availability and flexibility on meetings on Monday late afternoons. I'm going to pause there because I'm sick of my own voice. What questions do people have before I go to the next work group? Let me give you a minute. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, I'm going to keep rolling. You can certainly raise your hand. We can loop back. The second group is early indicators. And this is a group that will identify the early indicators to help detect and address when the system isn't working as intended. And the folks that have volunteered to be on here currently are Heidi Hamilton and Mike Tessner from the Olmsted Center. And then we anticipate having participants from the DHS Data and Quality Assurance Group. They are going to be looking for intended and unintended outcomes, early warning signs, and monitoring for implementation impacts. And so we can take that frame, and I'm going to be pinging those folks to see if they are available on Monday early afternoons. So early afternoons on Mondays. So Heidi, Mike, and the DHS data and QA work group reps. I'm going to keep rolling, and I'm watching for eyes, and I know that Katie will stop me. The next group is the waiver. I'm calling it now the waiver guardrails group. I originally had it as like the residential waiver, like logic model. I think all of these are going to need to be retitled, but it captures kind of the spirit of it. And this one really is to thoroughly understand the rationale behind using residents as a construct for the waiver consolidations. And then recommending guardrails to mitigate any risk of incentivizing congregate care. We know we want congregate care as part of the system, as the overall continuum of care and of choice, but how to make sure that the system isn't incentivizing it. We want to make sure that the system isn't advancing inequities, that's protecting civil rights, and it's working in alignment with Olmsted practices. So this is that group that will need to define things a little bit. Questions that this group might be answering would include things like, how does dividing the waivers by living settings support a needs-based system? And how do we ensure that the two-waiver structure is meeting the needs of a full range of services for all populations? So those might be some of the conversations that are happening there. Currently, we have Linda Fairchild volunteered for this, Jenna volunteered for this, and more, I have you on this one as well. And I'm going to send a note out to you all to see about the possibility of early afternoons on Fridays, so we can check to see if our schedules align that way. And then the last one is the policy and practice group. And I think when we're together in December, I said that this one felt like the squishiest. I think there's squishiness, but I think there's some important things that could start to get advanced right away. So broadly, the intent of this group is to work on behalf of the task force to recommend policies or legislation that integrates the task force recommendations with those of the task force and other expert committees and also DHS staff. So it's not just us as a task force saying, this is what we believe, but to try to knit together all of the work that's been done into a solution-oriented whole. And this one has Gretchen on air, Trisha, Meredith, Lisa, hopefully if you're willing, and likely a DHS representative. Here's what I think could be an important first bit of work for this body, and that is to address the concern that exists in the task force about, does the legislation that defines the task force activity align with what its original intent was? That seems to be still an open question. And I could see this group really taking a deep dive on that in order to make sure we're working in alignment, and then bringing that back to the task force in order for us to sort of deliberate on their assessment that way. I am going to be emailing you the possibility to align schedules on some Mondays late mornings. And so that's going to be coming attractions. There are a handful of people, and I want to share this. So what I did is I took the task force members and crosswalked it with sort of the work groups as people have currently signed on. And so Katrine, Chris, Chad, who's not here, Sada J, and Zainab, who we haven't seen at a meeting yet, are a handful of folks that I haven't heard what group you'd like to be attached to. So I sent out that as pre-work a couple weeks ago. I can send that again, but if you're willing to join a group, you can let me know and I'll loop you in, and we've got that kind of figured out. So that would be awesome. Let me pause there and get questions. Okay, thanks, Chris. I see you sent it right before the meeting, so that's great. I will loop that in. No problem. Katrine,
Is there
please.
representatives? Sorry. Is there representatives from all of the groups? I know you said DHS would be in them. Family members or people that are servicing people in each of the groups. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, we can double check that, Linda. And I think that's a good source of rigor on that to make sure. I also want to recognize that if those folks are already in other groups, I don't want to overwork them, right? And so what we might have to do is say, okay, we're missing these perspectives. And in fact, that's one of the first questions I want us to work on in our initial breakout group meeting is what perspectives are missing and how do we want to make sure we loop those folks in. So good, Linda, that way? Perfect. Katrine, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, so I did submit it. I just want to make sure that it was received. I think I requested to be in the first group and then the second group secondary.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if the work group meetings are going to be public.
So right now, the intention is that we work with a certain degree of agility. If we need to make them public, we certainly can. But because they're small and agile, right now that hadn't been the plan. But everything that that's happening in those groups, we brought to the task force absolutely as a public dialogue. But this is to do a little bit of that sort of messy sausage making in smaller and agile chunks. Okay. Other questions? Okie dokie. I don't know if your silence should be making me nervous or not. Please, Linda.
So is it that everybody's on one committee or some are on two? So
I tried to do it so that everybody is on one committee because I actually think there's going to be a fair amount of work. And so, and we still have the task force meetings and we're meeting every month that way as well. So it really was to try to distribute the load.
okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, Katrine.
You know, we've been asking since 2019 for the methodology information, and I understand things are still being worked on. But there's just certain things that we need to know in order to understand impact, such as what will be inside or outside of the budget. It's going to be really difficult to do any of the work on these work groups without information about where in the mid choices assessment things were derived from and some of those details. I will be submitting a more formal technical request for that information, and that should be available.
Yeah, thank you for raising this, Katrina. I'm gonna, this was my next slide, so it's almost like I should pay you for seeding the conversation that way. So in our initial group meeting, my intention is, or proposal would be that we meet each other, so we just sort of connect, that we clarify the task a little bit more, and that we identify some of the driving questions, and then identify the initial information or perspectives needed. So I think, Katrina, this is falling right into what you're saying. What data is this work group going to need in order to be able to advance their work? So I think we need to just really be doing that systematically. And then with that, start to frame out a work plan so that the work group sort of knows kind of what we're doing and sort of how we're doing it. And then if there's a better way for us to capture the essence of the group by renaming it, I want to be able to do that. I will also let you know so that I'm fully transparent. From my experience working with groups where data may matter, I have a little bit of a framework that I use to sort of help us select what data and sort of have data, sort of a data strategy, because I don't know if any of you have been in this situation where we get so much data, we're sort of crushed by it. And it's like overwhelming to try to integrate all these pieces. So my approach always starts with, let's be really clear on the question we're trying to answer. And then to say, what are the valid data sources we should be looking for from there. And that's both quantitative and qualitative. So I'm not sort of making any statement about that, but I want to make sure that we don't make the job harder by crushing ourselves with data that we have to sort through if we're not clear on what the question is that we need to answer. So that's awesome. I'm looking for hands. Other questions? So you all can see each other. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. I will follow up with this via email, so you've got
Couple more
this.
hands just popped up, Fran.
Oh, perfect. Catch me on that,
Both,
Katie.
both Lindas sort of like put their hands up simultaneously, so I think there was some kind of coordinated thing going on there.
I just
Perfect.
wanted to know if, Fran, I'm assuming you're in each of the groups to
Yes.
facilitate. Okay.
Yes. If I'm not going to be facilitating, then I will rope Katie Pratt in. Yes, but to me, these will be supported. Yeah. Linda Wolford.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I didn't select a group because I didn't know where my expertise or experience would best be needed. I'm really flexible on moving into a group that where you think I would be most needed, and I'm willing to go to any of the groups. So you can pick for me because I'm okay with any of them. So
Thanks, Linda. I had sort of kept you and Dr. Kate in a separate category in your roles as co-chairs. And so you having demand on your time in terms of serving the greater body. So we can talk about where to do that, but I just felt like that would be sort of a third commitment and wanted to be respectful that way.
I kind of thought that, and that's kind of why I didn't pick a group either, because I wasn't sure how you wanted to handle it. So that answers my question. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can certainly be adaptive this way.
And Fran, this is Katie. Just chiming in with some of the things you and I talked about. Everybody in this group has very unique expertise, and many of you could serve in many places and help with many conversations. But again, we're trying not to overwork anybody. That doesn't mean you couldn't, pull Katrina in or give Katrina a quick call to get her input on something, or call into Fairchild to get input on something else. So there will be that cross-pollination. We're hoping that each of these groups can really roll up their sleeves and dig into the weeds in a way that we just can't do in the time and space we have as a full group. And we're really excited to see what you come up with and then bring back to the full team.
Yeah, thanks, Katie, for raising that up. I think that's great. And the work groups are working on behalf of the whole body, right? The whole community. So it's not just your perspective, but we're asking you to sort of carry the water for the greater good. So yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait to see where these might go. Again, I will send this out via email. I am keenly aware of our time, but we've got some the results of some of the doodle polls. So we've got some dates set for our next meetings. Don't worry about capturing it now. I can put it in an email to all of you. And we'll also put in the doodle poll looking for May dates. These are for the task force meetings. So holy smokes, we just covered a lot in a short period of time. So more to come. A couple of things, and I'm going to ask you to weigh in on in the chat this way, so we've got that. So our desired outcomes today were to have an introduction to the task force members, their preferences and areas of interest, to get some key updates on some of the key dates and waiver reimagine work plan changes, plan for letters to the task force. I know that we rushed through that, so we don't get a B+ on that one. And next steps for the work groups. So my question really is, how do we do? So on a classic school letter grade, if you can put in a letter grade in the chat of how you think we did today, that would be super helpful. I'm hoping for an average of a B+, in part because I was only an average student, so. And I don't think I have chat when I'm sharing.
And Fran, just a clarification that came up that this PowerPoint will be circulated. So people have
I can circulate the PowerPoint so people can have the content that we stepped over. Yeah, I'm going to be delayed on that. I want to run it through the department accessibility checker and make sure it went through the PowerPoint accessibility checker, but yeah. Perfect. Keep weighing in there on that. So that's great. And in our last 5 minutes, these were our grounding rules and everybody agreed to them. And I'd love to hear like 5 voices, you know, in leaning on these grounding requests or how we are working together, what's working well that we need to keep doing. And feel free to unmute and jump in. I'll work as air traffic control if needed.
I thought we got to hear from everybody, which is good.
Yeah, all voices. 4 more.
Keeping the pace moving.
Okay, so the pace was useful. Who said that? Oh, Jennifer. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like we don't get stuck at one topic and we can get through as many things as we can.
Yeah.
Making sure that everybody understood the questions, and if they needed more explanation, took the time to do that. I think that's key.
Perfect. Two more voices, please, at least. More, please.
I appreciate you that one of the grounding rules about sharing the air and really holding us to that has been, I think it has really helped us keep moving along. So thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to back clean up for us? One more.
I will. I appreciate it when we stop because we throw out a lot of acronyms and a lot of jargon. So I think we really do need to be mindful of that. DHS gives us reports, which is great, but if you don't know what you don't know, all of a sudden we're talking about something we don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let me stop this share. You all rock, and it is such a privilege to be on this journey with you. So thanks for having me. Does anybody need to say anything else in order to be complete for today? Katie, do you want to weigh in at all?
Well, I did have a comment that I think we need to do better with more people being able to call in from warmer climates. So I wish that for all of us, whether it's maybe a little thawing here on our home front or sunny vacations as we move into spring break season. So.
Is that in the budget?
Oh, totally in the budget. We can dream, we can maybe we can have more like palm tree backgrounds. That's what I do to make myself feel warm as I put the palm tree screen background on.
I see a task force retreat in our future at some point.
I was just going to say that, like, perhaps we need to do some research in other warmer climates to see compare and contrast.
And I suspect there would be a work group that would want to scout those places out in advance on behalf of all of us. Jenna, I saw your hand.
Oh, I just, this is for Julie.
No, don't.
I just appreciate you, Julie, being there for me when we have MSS stuff.
Oh, Jenna.
So awesome.
Well, we're not supposed to talk about that, but thank you. That made my day. So that's okay.
Jenna.
And Julie, she gives you the floor because your hand's up.
Great. I hate to go from vacation to work because I love warm weather and vacation, so I don't mean to be the downer. I just want to clarify. So you're gonna share all the PowerPoints and the emails and all of that stuff. But as far as those questions for additional information and going in the parking lot, are we gonna get those at interval moments in between meetings? Are we gonna wait till the next meeting? Can we just be clear about when we're going to hear back about the data and the questions and the things that you're capturing? That would be really helpful to me.
Totally. So thank you for asking that, Julie. That's really so helpful. Yes. We're not going to step over them. And I'm going to share my screen. You're not intended to be able to read this. I just want you to know that, like right now, okay? So bear with me for just a second. For some of you, you can probably see a bunch of bigger squares and littler squares inside those squares. What these basically are electronic Post-it notes. Every time you raise a question or I get a report from all of you, what I do is identify the questions that are there and then put them as questions and then have kind of grouped them. So all of what is on the parking lot, Julie, and these things get raised, go in here as a way for me to sort of, Katie and I, to kind of organize this. And then as we know that there's data available or the timing of this is required in order to have the next conversation, this is how we try to orchestrate all of these things. So when I have a parking lot issue, hopefully you've already seen me say from our last meeting, let's close this up. So it's just a matter of kind of triaging all the things that are coming in live and then separately and figuring out how to sequence it in ways that allow the task force to complete its work. So this is a live resource for me. And so yes, we're going to get that. And if I can get a deadline and get a sense of it, we'll let you know this is going to be the meeting agenda. Like I'm expecting us, if we can, depending upon how the deliverables with HSRI go, I anticipate that a conversation with HSRI may be Marchish as like a major agenda item.
Totally understand. I guess my question was, do we have to wait for the meeting? Especially as we break down into work groups, if we have information kind of in the interim, especially if it's a big report that we have to digest. I don't know about other people. I need time to read it, kind of do a little bit of research and reflect on it. So if it's possible and things do bubble up in between, it would be great to get that information in between.
Perfect. I'm definitely hearing this as a request. I can't red, green, yellow card it. Let me put it this way. I can yellow card it. I can say, I hear that request. Let's definitely try to do that. If information is available, we're not going to stand on ceremony. We'll be like, if you need this to have a productive conversation, we'll work to get it out to you. So I'm going to say, we'll try. Yeah. Mike, and it looks like you're unmuted.
I'm testing. Can you hear me? I have no idea. I just rebooted it a couple of 3 times and somehow it started working.
Well, so glad you could join the meeting, Mike.
No, 1 minute to spare.
It's awesome. Hey,
But
listen,
now you have to stay in that place and not unmute till the next meeting.
I love it. Sounds like me and technology. Listen, all, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for showing up with the energy you showed up. It's 1 minute past our adjourn time, so we're going to just call us good.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Stay warm.
Yeah, first job. So great to see you all.